G'day ladies and gentlemen, how you all doing? Scotty49 here with you once again for another installment in the How to Play Warhammer 40,000 series. In this series, we are talking about how to go about playing the game in different ways, how to go about army list construction and what's involved, and also talking about the core mechanics of the game so you can get playing games faster with a decent understanding. Now, with this video being the 6th video in the series, we're going to be covering off today on the battle round, the command phase, and objective scoring. So ladies and gentlemen, if you do enjoy this style of content, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below, as we are so close to hitting 100 subscribers on the channel, so we can get that custom URL, which would be awesome to have. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump into it. Alrighty, so first up, we've got the battle round. Now, the battle round is the name that's given to each player taking a turn in order as determined by the roll-off in the pre-game, like we discussed in the last video. Now, depending on your army, you may have various rules that you need to resolve before the start of the game, before the start of the first battle round, or even at the start of each battle round. Some of these rules, for example, can be combat doctrines for either Space Marines or Death Watch. For example, Death Watch get to choose, whereas standard Space Marines, it's set for them with only one choice at turn 3. Or you've also got command protocols for Necrons as another example, where you set which command protocol you want to have active at the start of each battle round, and you choose one of the two possible activations to use in that turn. So those are just a couple examples, and quite possibly your army might have something similar to that end as well. Now, after you have resolved any rules that are along those kind of lines for your army, the player who is going first will take their turn, and generally this player is called the player who has the top of the turn, and the player who didn't win the roll-off and doesn't get to go first is known as having the bottom of the turn, more commonly in the game. Now, each player's turn is the exact same and consists of a number of different phases that you follow through in sequence, and they are the following, which is you start off with the command phase, you then go into the movement phase, the psychic phase, shooting phase, charge phase, fight phase, and morale phase. And that is the turn. And so I'll be covering each of these different phases in their own video, maybe jumbling up one or two of them together, for example, the charge phase and the fight phase, because they are related. But in this video, we're going to jump into, first off, the command phase. So the command phase is actually pretty straightforward, and there are a couple of things that can occur. The first is, if you're following the previous videos, we talked about army list construction and you're using a battle-forged army, this is where one of the benefits comes in of using a battle-forged army, because at the start of each command phase, you get an additional command point to use during your games for stratagems, which is great. It's a really good benefit to be able to use additional stratagems throughout your game through these additional command points. The second, however, is going to be quite dependent on your army, as you might have rules that you need to resolve in the command phase. Some such rules are selecting a unit that's within 6 inches of a chapter master or a watch master to get rerolls to hit on every roll to hit that you make with that unit. Or it could be selecting a unit that's within 6 inches or maybe 9 inches of a Necron Overlord to be affected by the My Will Be Done ability of the Necron Overlord to get +1 to hit on their hit rolls. So, you know, those kind of abilities will either state you have to do them during your command phase, or you have to do them in the movement phase, more commonly than not. Now, the third thing that we do, and I'm going to cover this in general, is your scoring objectives. And this is another element of both the command phase, but other points throughout the game as well. In the command phase, from battle round 2 onwards, you start scoring your primary objective. Now, every mission will detail what that primary mission objective is. More commonly, if we're looking at the mission straight out of the Warhammer 40k core rulebook, they will either be 5 points for holding 1 objective, 2 objectives, or more objectives than your opponent, or there are some that are holding 2 objectives, holding 3 objectives, and holding more than your opponent, and you get 5 points for each of those. We did briefly touch on that in the pre-game video, and I'm touching it again here because you score them during your command phase. Now, as for your secondary objectives, so the 3 objectives you get to pick to try and achieve throughout the game, they're actually able to be scored at different times throughout your game. Now, each secondary choice will actually tell you when you are to score them. So the most common times as to when you actually score your secondary objective points are at the end of the command phase, which is why we're covering it here. Once an action has been complete, at the end of your turn, at the end of the battle round or at the end of the game. Now, even if the objectives call you to score at the end of the game or the end of the battle round, it's always recommended that you keep tally of each of your secondary objectives throughout the course of the game, because what that's going to allow not just yourself but your opponent to do is make better informed decisions to try and score as many points as possible in your games to get victory over your opponent's army in the game. And this means that you're going to have more tactical decisions to make. You might be forced to make other decisions to get points when you don't necessarily want to make that choice. And it's going to make for more exciting and thrilling games and have more of a focus on you're trying to win, but it's also going to create some fun for you because you might have some situations that are in your control that you have to react to, and you might be able to create some of those situations where you're in control and your opponent has to react to you. So it's really a good way to keep that, because you never want to get to the end of the game and find out at the end of turn 3 your opponent already had 15 points on one of his secondaries and there was nothing you could do about it because you only tallied it up at the end of the game, right? So it's about focusing on that fun and making sure that each player is transparent about where their scores are at going forward. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know this one's been a bit shorter, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that I've been able to give you a clear understanding and a clear explanation of what the battle round is, of the command phase and what's involved during it, and as well as to when you're scoring your objectives, both your primary and your secondary throughout the game as well. Now, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. If you haven't already, feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button on the video as well, as it'd be greatly appreciated. But if you don't want to ask your questions here, feel free to come by my Twitch channel when I am live on Tuesday and Friday nights and Saturdays Australian Eastern Time, and ask there, where myself as well as the other people in chat will be able to answer them for you. Or if not, feel free to jump into my Discord with the details down below. We've got over 100 members in there now, and they're from all across the world, so we'll be more than happy to answer any questions and give you a good understanding of these elements of the game and help you learn the game as best as possible. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.